thing.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm sorry. Yes, you do, Steve. You have plenty of standards. They're just not very high.
That's right. That's right. They're as high as my hair. That's there they are.
So we're going to just kind of go through a couple things, like kind of quickly before we get into like middle school. So this is our leadership team here at Magnitude, and you can learn more about us at Magnitude.io. And then we also have a team of co-investigators and curriculum developers. You might recognize two faces on there. And so we're all over the country. We span all different grade levels and even in other countries. And so it's really been a fun collaboration to all kind of come together on this mission and share with other classrooms as well. Steve, you want to talk about the lessons?
Yeah, sure can. Michael, I'm assuming I can share screen a little bit too. I don't know if I'm.
Yes, you should be able to. So if you just coordinate with each other, who drops.
So I've got the website there, the platform actually pulled up, Lauren, so I can kind of show. I don't have any classes set up yet, but again, we haven't started going, so I just want to show everybody kind of what it looks like once you get into it. Everybody should be able to see that. So this is the platform when you get on there, and you can find the lessons over in this little area here. And so we have those set up with our current logo, assuming it decides it wants to load up. You can see right here, ExoLab-9. And you'll notice at the top of each one, it kind of has what the basis of the lesson is in, as well as the grade levels that is for. And again, all of these can be modified. The first few here, it's not wanting to, there we go. Now it's moving. You'll notice we've got it set up for elementary, middle school, high school, lower elementary, upper elementary. And we've tried to keep a common naming convention for all of them to where you can then go into them and work on them. You notice they've got our names here. So if I pull up this introduction here, I'm pulling up yours, Lauren. Here we go. You can use this clone button over here, which will help you then make your own copy of that lesson, and then you can modify it for however you need to for your particular class, and then you assign it there. But the lessons are really very comprehensive, and they should really, even if you're not that familiar with what we're doing with the plants and how the science works, that's what we're here for. We should be able to help you with that. So that's a really basic overview of what that looks like.
Sorry, my computer muted itself again. I was like giving you a whole spiel here.
Yeah.
We've got all different content areas. So you can see like the three that are even just kind of pictured here on the slide: experimental design, or physics, or biology, or geology. It's a very comprehensive set of lessons that cover a variety of different areas. So Steve will tell you a little bit about how he's used ExoLab in his classroom.
So the way I've got it set up, so my school, we're a 9-week course, and this fits in really nicely with how I do things in my classroom. But I always want to get, first get the students set up in the platform so that they're able to access it. And once we're in there, we do a lot of the introductory activities. And then once the main program has launched and is on station, is ready to go, and we get the word from Michael, we go ahead and get started in the classroom with it. And the kids really seem to enjoy being able to see something physically in the classroom and be able to go get up from their desks and go look at it, as well as look on the platform at the picture from the camera, and then being able to see what's going on in space. And what I have had students in the past do is, they keep their notes in the platform, but I also encourage them to keep a physical notebook as well. where they can draw some pictures and keep their own notes. And then they can always upload those onto the platform for us to use later for different types of projects. But it's always really cool whenever, you know, administrators or parents or visitors come in the classroom to see your little glowing purple box over there in the corner and want to know what's going on, and you get to tell them that your children, your students are working on real science in space. And so it's really, we've made it really nice and easy to get set up and to get started with. So that's kind of how I run it. And what I like about how it's done, once the initial project is finished, you still have access to that data. I told you my class is a 9-week class. At the end of that 9 weeks, those students are gone. This experiment that we're doing, ExoLab-9, is probably going to be finished by then. I can then start that same experiment with my new set of students, and they get all that data. It's all kept online, and I can continue with that throughout the year with a new set of students. Even though technically the experiment on station has finished, students, you know, still get the same content and experience with that.
Steve, I'll just clarify on that anytime you start a new experiment, your students will be able to experience it from day 0. So as they go through, their day 5 will only show day 5 on station, or when they compare to any other schools running the experiment, they'll only see those experiments up to day 5. So as Steve said, it keeps it very real, very pertinent. It doesn't have a feel that you're rinse and repeating anything. It really, it's a fresh experiment and experience for those students.
And you don't have to feel like, oh my goodness, I started late. We had something going on at school and I wasn't able to start on day 1. It doesn't matter. You can start whenever it works for your schedule.
Absolutely. So here's kind of how I've used it with my 7th and 8th graders. You can see one picture up there, like on the top left. These are my kids kind of checking it out in the classroom. You can hear my tiny assistant down here below me as well. He's 1, so that's why you're hearing noises. And then these 2 pictures kind of diagonal from each other. I had my students present their research. We had local scientists and folks from like other teachers. So it was people that my kids did not know. I knew them all. Wasn't like, hey, everyone just come into the building. But they had to present their findings on a trifold board. They had to make their claim, support it with evidence, and give us their reasoning, and present what they thought was happening. You know, the most common answer or question I get from kids is, am I right? Is this the right answer? And, you know, in ExoLab, it's fun to be able to say, I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think that? You know, and it's a new experience for kids. They're not used to in school doing authentic research. They're used to, let me recreate somebody else's experiment. Oh, yep, okay, got the right answer, moving on. And then, so kind of along those lines, this picture on the right is one that my kids did this last year, where in one of the lessons that's on the platform, it's talking about gravitropism and various tropisms that plants experience, but specifically gravitropism. And they asked the question, what would happen if the light and the gravity were coming from the same direction? I said, well, I don't know. Let's find out. And so this was their little contraption that they rigged up. They have, this is just a paper cup here with a petri dish, a square petri dish in the middle. And then they covered it so that way none of the light was reflecting back inside of it. Although then they came up with the theory of, ooh, well, maybe the light is reflecting off of the foil inside. And so they covered it with black paper first. But this was all them. And so it was really fun to just watch them go from, you know, kind of, since I teach them for 2 years, the same kids, it was fun to watch them, those same group of kids go from, do I have the right answer to, here's my question and here's how I want to test it. So we have a lot of fun with it. So that was a very fast and furious overview of kind of some of the things that are available in middle school. Hopefully kind of what you've seen is that it's very flexible. If you have the time in your curriculum and in your schedule and you're going to do 3 solid weeks of lessons, we have that available for you. If you only have a couple weeks, a shorter time or a couple days even, you can just do the lessons that fit. Each of the lessons is standalone, and so you don't have to do them all in sequence. I've even used them. We have one on Martian regolith. So when my 8th graders come back this fall, here in just a couple weeks, they've been reading The Martian as their summer reading. And so we'll use that lesson in connection with The Martian. And then when we start doing all of our ExoLab stuff, we'll be like, okay, remember how we talked about this? Here's how this is connected. And so we can tie those lessons in throughout the year as they fit and then refer back to the data. So anybody have any questions?
I was gonna say, I'm really curious to find out what kind of questions everybody has for it. Have you guys used this before? Or is this your first time using the ExoLab?
My group used it last year. I was going to ask, has anything changed with the online platform? Has anything been updated, ease of use type of things with I seem to have an issue with when the student entries were saved, to the notebook tab, compared with it seems like they got a little bit mixed up, like convoluted, and they would give me a percentage on how much a student had done on my homepage, but it really didn't match up with what they had actually done. I mean, it was giving some students a ton of credit that really hadn't done anything. Has anything changed at all with the online platform?
There was definitely, and Tony, if you want to speak more to it, definitely there's been a lot of work. Our engineers have been busy all summer working on different bugs or issues with the platform. The student notes, that was a bug last spring, and I think that's been fully resolved to where students have their notes and they're saved the way that you would expect them to be. If you might remember last year we had a pre-populated field on the experiment notebook. We've taken that out, and we're using a single page log. We've greatly simplified how we're asking students and teachers to report data, and that's completely outlined in the data and observations lesson for all grades. And there's a form specifically for middle school. And as Lauren was saying, the flexibility, and Steve was showing, you can clone lessons, and I think you know that as well. But feel free to choose if you want to use the upper school version, for example. Think that you feel that's more appropriate for that data form, or the lower school is maybe more appropriate for your setting, or just what you want to have them do with it. You should feel free to do that, and we've given you links to all of those forms. So yeah, hopefully things will move, will work a little more smoothly for everybody this go around. And the team has also been working on a really cool feature if you're a Google Classroom class. So hopefully that'll roll out here in a few weeks.
Awesome, thank you.
I wasn't aware that you were having problem with the progress while they are going through the lessons. If you want, we can have a one-on-one tomorrow, so I can learn a little bit more what you were experiencing, so that we can definitely address that if that is really the issues you had.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that vein, Lauren, would you share, or Steve, share the platform? I think the two of you might know this, but for those watching the recorded version of this presentation, there is a help chat button that you can search topics right down there at the lower right corner, and you click that and you can shout out for help, and our team will get right on that. So you can search, the user guide is there, the information about the lessons, and you can scroll through there, trouble logging on. It's categorized, so there's really a lot there. And you can always just shout out directly for help.
Yeah, exactly. If you click on that, you can send us a ticket asking a question. Usually, Ted, me, and the tech team will jump on this ticket very, very quickly. By the way, you know how to get hold of us.
I do.
No, we really want you all to have success with this. As Lauren said, with real science, you never know what the outcome is going to be of the experiment, but we want to know that your outcome of this pedagogically is a good one.
Yeah, no, I love the once I got the hang of the cloning the lessons and customizing them, I was all about it every week, updating them. And especially like you mentioned Google Classroom. Last year we were back and forth with straight online and then hybrid, and it just made it a lot simpler to just do the same thing, make everything online, so whether they're in person or not.
Seems like that is not going away, unfortunately, the hybrid, the way we are heading. But we are fully trained now. Yeah, hopefully within a couple of weeks, we will release the integration of Google Classroom. So it makes it a lot easier for you to switch between the two very, very easily. And not just for you, for the student as well.
And I believe there's also future plans for any teachers that might be using Microsoft Teams to try to get something in the future for that as well. But right now we're focused on getting it integrated well with Google Classroom.
Right. And I think through this process, we will learn a lot from doing the Google integration. And hopefully when we are working on the Microsoft integration, it will be a lot easier. But I think I'm going to be wrong.
Now that you said it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just because that's how it works.
Yeah.
Now, I know for a lot of middle school teachers, curriculum gets a little bit siloed. I teach in upper elementary, and I'm really able to integrate the ExoLab work throughout the students' educational experience, not just in science, in maths, and also in the humanities work. And because, as Lauren said, there are humanities-based lessons, there are a variety of, there's some math lessons, not just the science. So if you want to engage one of your fellow teachers that has the students, it's a great way to integrate and collaborate. And it, speaking as a person who's a big curriculum collaboration proponent, it really boosts the experience of the student and deepens their understanding across the board. They see, like, if you take a look at the maths lessons that are on there around basic statistics, if you've not really done much with statistics, this is a great place to introduce it. It's real data. It's going to be messy data, but that's what lets the students make hypotheses and model and see what happens and manipulate variables and really see those outcomes in the data. And if you work with your math teacher, it'll strengthen their understanding in science as well as the mathematical concepts.
Hey, Michael,
Lauren, I know you worked on some literacy pieces for the platform as well over the summer, some things with Storytime in Space, but also some writing pieces, correct?
Yeah, there's a couple focus morely, making up words now. More on upper elementary. It's kind of, but you can absolutely adapt them for middle school as well. I think there might be a middle school version in there. Yeah, so getting them writing, getting them, especially one on like report writing. How do you get started with like a claim evidence reasoning type report, just at the very basic level.
Hey, Michael, can you introduce the different forms you have for observation?
Sure, I can share those.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, we had been using a data form in the notes field. Let me share my screen here so that I can speak in context. So one of the things around making observations, oh, it's not going to show them because I've got my administrator account. There's a little button that'll show up underneath your M here that's a black button that says notes. And it's a little digital notebook. And that's really useful. It shows up within lessons as well as on the experiment platform. And it's a great place for you as the teacher to make notes to yourself as you're going through the lessons. Or if you make observations, you don't want to forget about something to point out to your students or ask them about. It's a handy way to have all that in one place. But really encourage your students to make use of that as they're reading and carrying out activities within the lesson platform to use that notepad for making notes themselves, doing some reflection, and then with the observations during the experiment to use that as a place to put their anecdotal observations. But we've really simplified the quantitative reporting, and that's all outlined in the making observations lesson. So I went down this in the second to the last column so that I could show you the middle school version. And for some reason, I thought I was needing to log back in. Let's try this again. And there will be a separate session on data and observation work as well. So that'll be on later in the week. Okay. So like all the lessons, you have the outline of the lesson section by section. As the teacher, you see all of it from the get-go. The students will only see the first section, and then they'll have to click next to see each subsequent section. And then there are some sections like the objective section here that's hidden for teachers. But if that's something that you want your students to see, or you want them to see the more detailed outlines or standards or anything like that, you can clone that lesson and make those visible to your students. So here's a screenshot of the experiment platform. So you can see the ground-based experiment on the left and the flight experiment on the right. And I've opened up this little notes tab so that you can record your notes. And it has a little simplified text editor. So you can actually insert images, you can put tables in there, you can do some formatting, you can put lists, you can bold things. So it really allows you to put a lot of detail into those notes. And then you just want to remind your students to click the save note each time. And then that will, with each entry, and then that will show up in their, they'll have a My Notes tab over on the sidebar that they can always go back and access their previous notes. They can also, from that point, save it as a PDF or print out their entire notes if you, or submit the PDF. I would have my students periodically, just to make sure everybody was actually doing their anecdotal observations, submit those notes as a homework about every other week. So we made these field notebooks for the middle school. It's a single page, and you can either download it as a Google Doc and then fill it out directly on that. It'll download a copy for you, and you could then post that to your Google Classroom so that each student would get a copy. Or if you want to modify something, you have the ability to do that then. Or you can just open up the PDF. And here's what that form looks like. It's a simple one-page form. And really, we're looking at the critical events, and these events are explained in the plant physiology lessons as well as in the student section for this data and observations lesson. So we're looking at germination, when the first trefoil forms, and when you first observe nodulation. So all you're doing is for each plant, 1 through 10, because we're going to have, you'll have 10 seeds. We're putting 5 seeds per tube this time instead of the 3 seeds per tube, going 5. So you'll have a total of 10 plants, 10 seeds. And then at which day after planting did you observe that event for that plant? So when did each one germinate? When did each one have their first trefoil, and hopefully nodulation? And then there's some summary down at the bottom, the date that you planted, how many days after planting for first nodulation, the mean average number of days after planting for germination for first trefoils, the mean height. And there's we have a measurement scale on the Lexan cover of the lab, so that even through the photographs, you can estimate the height plus or minus a millimeter. So that'll be accurate enough, precise enough, excuse me, for what we need to do here. And then the total number of nodules, and then simple mean number of nodules per plant. So some simple statistical reporting. And then there's a form for the teacher as well. At the end of the experiment, or you could assign this to a specific student or a group of students to do. And we, it's not individual, but we do want to know what school you're from, the grade level, the planting date, the color of light you used, the light intensity, the photo period, and all those things are in the setup of your lab. How many seeds you planted, how many germinated, mean BAP for germination, first trefoil, first nodulation. So the summary data. And then also, if you want to, you can answer the ones that you have the data for and just leave them blank. Nothing is set as a required response. So if you don't fill out everything, you'll be able to do that. But you can always go back also and look at your data, your environmental data, and report, if you're so inclined, the mean temperature, humidity, light intensity, carbon dioxide, and then any other comments, interesting observations. And that would be something I'd do as a class. I would probably take a class session to submit this data, and I would solicit the students what comments they thought were critical to share. And this form also allows you to edit after submission, so that if you made a mistake or forgot to add something, you can always go back and do that. And I believe you'll see a summary of the data from the community after you submit as well. So it'll be you can compare visually on the platform, but then it may also give you another opportunity to compare the results of your colleagues.
All right, looks like we're right at about 6:30. Well, I'm in Central Time, so whatever time it is, it's that hour 30 for you.
30 minutes past the hour.
I think we've got multiple time zones on here, so
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, we have Central Europe.